Some games come out, make noise for a week, and disappear. But S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 was never just another release. It was something people had been carrying in their heads for years. Not just as a game, but as a place, a memory, a mood. The zone was never only about shooting enemies or completing missions. It was about the feeling of stepping into a world that did not care about you, did not welcome you, and did not promise that you would make it back out. That is why S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 had so much weight on its shoulders. People were not waiting for another open-world shooter. They were waiting for the return of something that felt almost mythic. And that kind of wait is dangerous, because the longer people wait, the bigger the dream becomes. At some point, they are no longer waiting for a real game. They are waiting for the perfect version of it that already exists in their imagination. So, I played S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 with one question in mind. Was it actually worth the wait? The first thing that hit me was not the gunplay. It was not the interface. It was not even the graphics. It was the atmosphere. That heavy, uncomfortable feeling that only this series seems to understand. The sky feels wrong. The silence feels wrong. Even the empty roads feel wrong. You walk through the world and it feels like something has already happened there. Something bad, and the place never recovered. That is what S.T.A.L.K.E.R does better than almost anyone else. It does not just give you a map. It gives you a presence. The zone feels like it is watching you. It feels alive in a way that is hard to explain. You are not exploring a theme park. You are moving through a wound, through a place that is broken, poisoned, and somehow still breathing. And because of that, even small moments feel tense. Walking into a dark building does not feel routine. It feels like a bad idea. Hearing a strange sound in the distance does not feel like background detail. It feels like a warning. Seeing an anomaly is not just a gameplay mechanic. It is a reminder that the world itself is hostile, that danger does not only come from enemies with guns. The ground can kill you. The air can kill you. Silence can kill you if it makes you careless. That is where the game feels strongest. Not when it is trying to impress you with scale, but when it is making you feel small. When it reminds you that you are not the hero of the zone. You are just another person trying to survive inside it. And I think that is why people kept waiting for this game for so long. Not because they wanted a polished power fantasy, not because they wanted another checklist open world full of icons and rewards. They wanted that feeling back. That feeling of stepping into a place that is lonely, threatening, and strangely beautiful at the same time. And to be fair, S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 really does have that feeling. You can feel it in the dead forests, the ruined buildings, the cold weather, the distant gunfire, the strange light, the rust, the mud, the silence. The game understands that atmosphere is not decoration. Atmosphere is the whole point. But then there is the other side of the story. Because S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is not a perfect game. It is rough. It can be unstable. It can be frustrating. There are moments when the immersion is powerful, and there are moments when technical problems drag you right back out of it. Bugs, awkward systems, performance issues, strange rough edges, all of that is real. And if you go into this game expecting something perfectly smooth and polished, it will probably disappoint you. But maybe that is also part of what makes this game so strange to talk about. Because most games live or die by polish. Most games need to feel clean, modern, and effortless to win people over. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 does not really work like that. It survives on feeling. It survives on identity. It survives on the fact that even when it is messy, it still feels like itself. And that matters more than a lot of developers seem to realize. Because a game can be technically impressive and still feel empty. It can run well, look good, and give you absolutely nothing to remember. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is almost the opposite. It is not always smooth, but it stays in your head. It leaves a mark. It makes you remember places, sounds, moments, and moods. That is why this game feels bigger than a normal release. It is not just another product that arrived, sold copies, and moved on. It feels like the return of a world that people were scared to lose. And maybe that is the real story here. Not whether the game is flawless, because it clearly is not, but whether the zone still has that power. Whether it can still make people feel the thing they came back for. And after stepping into it, I think the answer is yes. Not a clean yes, not an easy yes, but yes. What makes that answer complicated is that S.T.A.L.K.E.R. is constantly fighting with itself. One moment, it gives you exactly what you wanted: a road disappearing into fog, a crumbling building that feels like it has been abandoned for decades, a quiet stretch of wasteland that somehow feels more threatening than a battlefield. And then, a few minutes later, the illusion cracks. A bug, a rough animation, a performance drop, a system that feels more clumsy than tense. It is never just one thing. It is always both. And maybe that is why the game feels so human. Not because it is polished, but because it feels fragile, like something ambitious enough to reach for more than it could comfortably hold. You can feel the size of what it wants to be. You can feel how much weight it is trying to carry. And sometimes that weight bends the experience. But it never fully crushes it. Because underneath all the problems, the core of the game is still strong. The loneliness is strong. The danger is strong. The atmosphere is strong. The idea of the zone is still strong. And when that core is working, the game becomes hard to shake off. It gets under your skin. The anomalies are one of the best examples of that. In other games, hazards often feel like obstacles designed by a level designer. In S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2, anomalies feel wrong in a more unsettling way. They feel like part of a place that has stopped obeying the rules of reality. They remind you that the zone is not just ruined. It is corrupted. It is unstable. It is something that should not exist, but does. The survival side helps that too. Limited supplies, radiation, bleeding, hunger, tension over whether you should push forward or turn back. These things slow the game down in the right way. They make every trip feel heavier. You are not just moving toward the next objective. You are weighing risk. You are asking yourself if whatever waits ahead is worth the bullets, the meds, the food, and the danger. That gives exploration meaning. It makes the world feel costly. And costly worlds are memorable because they force you to care. In a lot of modern games, you move through the world carelessly because the world does not ask much from you. Here, the world asks something from you almost every minute. Attention, caution, patience, respect. And that is also why the game will not work for everyone. Some people will bounce off it. Some people will see the rough edges and decide that the experience is not worth the trouble. And honestly, that is fair. This is not the kind of game that tries to make itself easy to love. It asks more from you than most games do. But if you connect with it, it is hard to replace. That is the part that matters. S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2 does not feel built to please everybody. It feels built to bring a very specific world back to life. And when it succeeds, it reminds you how rare that is. So many games today feel like products designed by committee. Smooth, safe, accessible, carefully optimized, and instantly forgettable. S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2 is messier than that, but it also feels more alive. So was it worth the wait? I think the honest answer depends on what you were waiting for. If you were waiting for perfection, then no, this is not that game. If you were waiting for technical excellence, then no, probably not. But if you were waiting for the feeling of the zone, the dread, the loneliness, the beauty, the danger, the sense that the world itself is bigger and stranger than you, then yes, I think that feeling is still here. And maybe that is enough. Maybe more than enough. Because some games are remembered for being polished. Some are remembered for being huge. Some are remembered for changing the industry. But some are remembered because they make you feel something very few other games can. S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2 belongs in that category. It is not perfect. It is not smooth. It is not clean. But it has a soul. And sometimes, that matters more. Concorde died because people never found a reason to stay. S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2 is different. People stayed with this idea for years before the game even arrived. They stayed with the memory of the zone. And now that it is here, imperfect and unstable as it may be, I understand why they came back. Because the zone still feels like the zone, and there really is nowhere else like it. Not according to plan. Big promises, bigger mistakes. And sometimes, something broken is still powerful enough to be worth returning to.